better teach.
Okay, just so you know, we have started the recording. All right, hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here at our workshop, Systematic Reviews and Evidence Synthesis and Introduction. I'm Kim Reycraft. I'm the STEM librarian here at FGCU. And this is Traci Mays, the Health and Human Services librarian. So the session is being recorded. We're doing it in person and on Zoom at the same time. We will make the slides available after the presentation. And if there are any questions in the chat, please just go ahead and direct them to everyone. So what is evidence synthesis? It's any method of identifying, selecting, and combining results from multiple studies. And the aim is to identify and synthesize all the research on a particular topic. And a key point of evidence synthesis is that it's transparent, methodical, and reproducible. So here's a definition from the medical community, the Cochrane collaboration. Evidence synthesis, also sometimes called systematic reviews, is a way of combining information from multiple studies that have investigated the same thing. So this helps determine how effective a certain treatment or drug is, or how people have experienced a particular condition or treatment. And then a little broader definition from the Royal Society that's more focused on the policy impact. Evidence synthesis refers to the process of bringing together information from a range of sources and disciplines. Decision-making and debate are best served if policymakers have access to the best current evidence. So an accurate, concise, and unbiased synthesis is one of the most valuable contributions that the research community can offer to policymakers. So just a very brief or sort of broad timeline here. The 1980s and prior is what we consider the pre-evidence-based practice era in medicine. But in the 90s, systematic reviews and meta-analyses started to really come to the forefront in terms of informing treatments and best practices in medicine. In 1993, the Cochrane collaboration was formed, and they published the Cochrane database of systematic reviews. And now in the 21st century, the number of reviews being published just continues to increase. And these reviews are becoming more and more important, not just in medicine, but in a lot of different disciplines. The Campbell collaboration was formed, and they do this work in the social sciences. And they also work with the Cochrane collaboration as well. So here are a few examples of reviews that have been published by FGCU faculty. And you can see that reviews are happening not just in health sciences, but we've got examples from education, ecology, cybersecurity, really just across the board. And this is just a few examples. And now I will leave you over to this. Okay, what we'd like to do is pass out for you this which review is right for you. It was created by Cornell University. And we kind of want to go through that with you and just identify a way in which you can decide, because unfortunately, a lot of folks think they're ready to embark on a systematic review, and they may not have the time or necessarily the resources to go in that direction. So what Cornell did was kind of created a flow chart for you to consider and questions to consider as you think about which review type might be a good one for you. So the first question, of course, is, do you want to gather all of the evidence on a particular topic? And if your answer is no, then you might want to consider a literature or a narrative review.
If your answer is yes, the next question, of course, down the chart is, do you have 3 or more people to work on the review with you? Now, we're going to talk a little bit later in our presentation about who should be on your team and pulling that team together, but definitely 3 or more people for a systematic review of some sort is necessary. From there, do you have 12 to 18 months to work on this review? If your answer is no, then you might want to consider a rapid review as opposed to the systematic review. The next question, of course, is your topic broad? And do you have multiple research questions that you want to address? Again, if your answer is yes, a systematic review might not be the option that you want to consider. You might want to proceed and do a scoping review instead. But if your answer is no, then do you want to review other published systematic reviews in relation to your topic? And that, of course, leads, if it's yes, you want to do an umbrella review as opposed to a systematic review. But if it's no, and you have a well-formulated research question, then yes, you want to do a systematic review. And then further, yes, if you want to conduct or summarize, synthesize, and evaluate the evidence, then that would lead more to a meta-analysis. So we kind of follow these guidelines when we're considering and talking with you about your projects, so that we can really steer you in the right direction and help you evaluate what your end goal is as well. The other thing is there's also a tool here. It's called Review, and that'll be linked in the presentation, and you can answer these questions and go through that tool, and it will also help you to determine what review is a good one for you. The last one is a fairly standard, or became the standard article on review types. It lists and analyzes 14 different review types and methodologies, and that might be a resource you want to consult as you're considering the review that you want to do.
In that, is it okay to interrupt? Said I would ask questions.
Sorry, go ahead.
In that grant and booth paper, that's more than double the number that are on our flow chart.
Yeah.
So is it like subsections of?
They identified 14. I would say this is like the 6th most common. Yeah.
You're going to make this available to us?
Yes.
We have electronic.
The PowerPoint will be available afterward, and the DOIs are all linked
They're all
and
linked.
everything.
It looks like you got 4 unanswered in the chat.
Thank you. Okay, I thought that was what would you do? Yep, she. Great.
Thank you.
So, would you click back on the? I'm sorry. Better? Oh, yep, there we go. So the literature review, of course, does not establish methodology or reporting guidelines. It's not considered comprehensive or exhaustive, and critical appraisal is not necessary when conducting just a basic literature review or narrative. Of course, the next is the systematic review. You start with a clearly defined research question. It is very specific, not multiple research questions. It does follow a standard published methodology. It also considers not only the current research out there, but white papers, as well as gray literature that might be available. It is unbiased, or as unbiased as possible, and reproducible, and must include a critical appraisal of the literature.
usually takes 12 to 18 months to complete. A meta-analysis, of course, includes all the things of a systematic and review, but also evaluates and synthesizes the evidence as well. So then you have your scoping review, and you, from there, identify a question, identify relevant studies, chart data, collect or collate, summarize, and report. It seeks to address a broader research question or set of questions and identifies the gaps in the research and literature. And then you have the rapid review, which is a review you can conduct instead of a systematic review if you're short on time, but also needs to have those components of a systematic review as well, with the critical appraisal and things of that nature. And then you have the umbrella review, and that's when you're doing a systematic review, but want to include a systematic or analysis of the systematic reviews also on the topic. It's comprehensive and exhaustive and requires finding all of the evidence synthesis on a topic. Also unbiased as possible and reproducible, and may or may not include a meta-analysis. So that kind of leads us to almost a project management or steps in the process. When you come to talk with a librarian, usually we're going to talk to you about these different steps and where you are. Having a good comprehensive, a good answerable research question, of course, is utmost. And we're going to be talking to you really about this, your question and what your end goal is. And so what you would do, of course, is have that question, develop a protocol. The librarian, Kim or I, or any of the other librarians, according to the disciplines that we have, are there to help you with your searching. But really, if you bring us on board as part of your team, do that searching, help you create those search strategies, help you define what inclusion and exclusion criteria you're going to use when analyzing the results that come back, or screening the results that come back. Then talking to you about the critical appraisal component and giving you the tools to conduct that critical appraisal. Data extraction, synthesizing your evidence, and then talking to you about journals, possible journals to publish in, helping you identify predatory journals if that might be a concern.
你是
And
你的 ad 里的 food 还没送去是吗？你是要给他煮什么？
And then, of course, you know, helping you prepare that cover letter and things of that nature as you submit for publication. Oh, oh. So kind of in the planning and developing that research question, we look at some different frameworks in which we can develop those questions and different things like that. Of course, in medicine, we most commonly might use the PICO question framework and templates for that, but there's also other ones such as WWH, which is the who, what, and how framework. Another one you might have is PO, which is population exposure outcome. PICO, of course, is population intervention comparison outcome and optional is time. Or SPIDER is sample phenomenon of interest, design evaluation or research type. And then from there, for some qualitative type studies, we do SPICE, which is setting, perspective, intervention, comparison, evaluation. And there's all kinds of others that are possibilities for you as well. And you might want to consider. And again, as librarians, we can help you with those. So here's another one for the maybe the non-medical folks in the room. Context, intervention, mechanisms, outcomes, and persons, environments, stakeholders, interventions, comparison, and outcome.
These acronyms are helping us focus our initial data search to derive the question. Is that
Yeah,
what
the
these are for?
research question. Exactly. So you're plugging in your population group, the environment they're in, and formulating that into your research question. And ideally, you know, with PICO, for my medicine folks, there are certain types of research that contribute to those types of questions and templates that are useful for. So if you have a therapy question, you might try a randomized controlled trial, prevention question, RCT with cohort or case control, and so on and so forth. And different types of studies are more conducive to the different questions asked than others. So you want to consider and look at exactly what your question is, and then, you know, or the research that you've conducted, and then formulating your question. So when we talk about your team, of course, we have, I'm trying to count them all in my head. We have 6 librarians, I believe, in our department of research, scholarship, and instruction. And usually when you assemble your team, you want a minimum of 2 reviewers. You want someone, a third, perhaps that would break your tie if you and your colleague cannot agree. And then from there, subject experts. So if your question deals with wrestling alligators, you might want to have one on your team. But if your question deals with physical therapy or something along those lines, you might want to contact your colleagues at the other table there. So from there, you want to talk to your subject librarian, and we are happy to join your team, and we have different levels of expertise. Well, not expertise, no, I was thinking levels of care for you, I guess is how I would say that. Like if you want us to be co-authors, we can do that. If you want us to be consultants, we can do that. If you want us just to be a sounding board, we can do that. So there's different levels of care that we can contribute to your project. You might, if you're conducting a meta-analysis, want a statistician on your team as well. And then if you're conducting an economic analysis, you'll definitely want some kind of economist to join.
I'm having difficulty anticipating why I would need a tiebreaker. Will that emerge as we go forward?
Yeah.
Whenever I've done something like this, if we're trying to decide to include something, the default is inclusion is better than exclusion. And if we're trying to deal with two different people interpreting something in a different way, typically the language would be both interpretations, you know, in terms of the review. So what am I doing when I have to vote? Or will that come up?
It'll come up,
Thank you.
no
Sorry.
problem, no, it's okay.
But one of the things, you know, we're always going to point you to as well as your inclusion and exclusion criteria. And when you have a well-established criteria, then any decisions are going to fall first to that before your opinion of interpretation is considered.
This is you.
No, it's not. Me. It's you. Okay, so there are definite guidelines that you can look at to kind of familiarize yourselves with the systematic review process. The first, of course, is the Cochrane collaboration, and there is a Cochrane handbook for systematic reviews. The second is Institute of Medicine and finding what works in healthcare. And then the Joanna Briggs Institute also has a manual for evidence synthesis. And you can, all of those manuals are online, and you can pull them up and kind of, they're sectioned out according to chapter by chapter. We also have these resources in the library here, so we can help you with that as well. And then, of course, if you're familiar with the Prisma reporting standard. Prisma is definitely a standard, and you want to document your search methodically and put it. Okay. I'm sorry, I should have picked another one. But this is the 2020 checklist that we printed out for you. It takes you item by item through the abstract, introduction, methods section, then onto the results section, discussion section, and then other information you want to consider. But, you know, you should be able to answer these questions. Is there enough literature published on the topic to warrant a review? Can your research question be answered by an SR? Do you have a protocol outlining the review plan? Do you have the time? Which is a big one for most of us. To conduct the review properly? Do you have a team of experts? And do you have a method of discerning bias? And can you have or afford to have articles in languages other than English translated? If you find that there's research available in other languages.
Is there a rule of thumb for that first bullet, or is that discipline or question specific?
It's discipline or questions. Because, you know, one of the things that you are one of the purposes of conducting the study in the first place and writing about it is there a gap in literature? So you kind of want to know that in advance and then work through that from there to know if you can. Because a systematic review, of course, and this when really is talking specifically about an SR for the most part, because you are with an SR using it to create standards or guidelines. So you do want to make sure that there is a substantial body of literature which will contribute to creating those standards or guidelines and then promoting an evidence-based approach to do that. Okay, now it's you.
No problem. Okay, so the second step is developing your protocol, which is basically your published or written up research plan. So again, you're going to have a clear rationale for the review, a detailed description of your research questions, your outcomes that you're interested in, and the methods that you'll use to find, screen, select, and synthesize the data. And a lot of researchers actually publish their protocol online before they start the review. So one advantage of that is it avoids duplication of effort, because if the review is going to take 12 to 18 months to complete, it can be helpful to be able to go out and search and see if another review is already, underway on what you're interested in. And it can also increase transparency. When, you have published what you were planning to do, then the readers can go and compare that to, okay, what was actually done? How did it turn out? And Prisma, we gave you the Prisma checklist for everything that should be reported on in the review. They also have a checklist for everything that should go in the protocol. And that's linked there as well. Did you have a question?
Yeah, so, and it might, Traci, might be better. Does the NIH clinical trial registry allow for registering of systematic reviews?
Say that again.
The clinical trial registry. I think NIH runs that, and the National Clinical Trials Registry. Yeah. Yeah.
You guys have a registry for everybody who's doing experiments right now? That's pretty badass.
No, actually, most
We don't in my field,
most of our
right?
journals actually require, if you do a clinical trial.
And I think the True
That is
Prospero
pre-registered.
Wow, that's a good idea.
would do that. And so, I know that they do not, register scoping reviews at this point, but there are others that, not Prospero that do. So, yes.
And that's actually the next
I'm
slide
sorry.
is Prospero. No problem.
Sorry.
So Prospero is the International Perspective Register of Systematic Reviews. So this is where you can pre-register your protocol, but it has to have a health-related outcome. But if you're doing work outside of the health sciences, there are other places and ways that you can publish your protocol if you would like to. You can upload a protocol to the Open Science Framework, just upload it yourself, and it will give you a DOI. We've also got a couple of just generic templates. So there's an evidence synthesis protocol template that's also available on the Open Science Framework. So that might be helpful just to kind of guide you through what you want to put in your protocol, because it's a template. And the third one there is the Inclusive Systematic Review Registration Form. So those people created that because they noticed, hey, everything is so focused on health sciences. Let's create a systematic review registration form that's more generic in nature. So after you've written up your plan for research, the next step would be searching. And that's where we recommend you work with a librarian, because that is our area of expertise. So you want to figure out your keywords and your search strategies, figure out what databases you will search and who will search what database, or will the librarian search all of them. You're probably going to want to work with a citation manager like Zotero or something to stay organized and keep track of all the articles you're finding. There are also several SRR software programs that can help, and in fact that's going to be our next workshop, will be tools and resources, different software programs. And while you're searching, it's super important to document everything and track your progress. So you'll want to look in at least 3 databases as typically best practice. So if you're in medicine, of course, you'll search Medline on PubMed or some other interface. You'll probably also want to include a multidisciplinary database like Web of Science or Scopus. We have both of those through the library. You might want to include a subject-specific database. So, for example, if you're in psychology, PsycInfo, education, there are education-specific databases, business. And then once you have your final search strategy in one database, we'll help you translate it to the other databases because they all work a little bit differently. So with a systematic review or other evidence synthesis project, you want to go beyond the basic search to a more exhaustive search. And you want to be sensitive enough that you're getting all the relevant articles, but we also try to be specific enough that you don't end up having to wade through like thousands and thousands that are irrelevant. So we do a lot of like testing different search strategies to figure out the best one. So an example of a more basic search would be low and middle income countries, and we have some synonyms there for that. LAMI country, developing country, maybe transitional country. But then a more exhaustive search would be like listing all of the LMICs out along with any name variations and also former names. So this is from a review that I was kind of like a mentee on in a project. And this list was developed by looking at the World Bank list of low and middle income countries. So that's what we mean by exhaustive versus just a basic search. And then translating the search across different databases. So they all use slightly different field codes. So we can help you with, translating that. This is a chart of the field codes in the 5 most common biomedical databases. So you can see, for example, in PubMed, if you want to search in the title of abstract, it's TIAB in brackets, but then in ProQuest, for example, it's AB, TI with your search terms in parentheses there. So that's what we mean by translating the syntax. So you want to search the gray literature as well to make sure that you're getting everything, not just limiting it to the peer-reviewed articles. So we will search technical reports, white papers. You'll probably want to search dissertations and theses. We can do that on ProQuest dissertations and theses.
And this will be our third workshop.
And that'll be our third workshop, will be gray literature. And then finally, this is the Prisma flow diagram that documents all the searching results. And best practice is to have this included in the final manuscript, so in the methods section. So it just walks through, okay, how many records or how many articles did you retrieve from each database? How many duplicates were removed? When you do the screening with the include and exclude, how many did you pick out? And it all leads to the final number of studies included in the review. Screening. Okay.
So when you're screening all of those wonderful results that you pulled back from your literature search, or your librarian pulled back for you from your literature search, you're going to want to, of course, I know we're not fishermen too much anymore, but kind of how I think of it is initially from your inclusion exclusion criteria, you are a fishmonger, if you've ever been to a fish market, and in, out, he gets a load of fish and he's sorting very quickly through those based on title and abstract. So you're in, out according to your criteria, inclusion exclusion criteria. Then, of course, you're importing those things into either your citation manager of choice, or perhaps you have an SR software that you've adopted, like Distiller SR or Covidence or something along those lines. Rayon is a free one that's out there. Cadmium is another one that is available to you without charge. But you're importing those ones that you've identified very quickly through title and abstract screening, and importing it into those tools. And from there, that's where you have the 2 people plus the tiebreaker. there are times when you and your colleagues don't agree. And I know that's hard to fathom. But it is possible, and you will need that one additional person to perhaps come alongside you and help you determine, based on your inclusion and exclusion criteria, does this fit or does it? And so that's why we recommend 2 people plus the tiebreaker. And then you identify through that software, okay, this one's included, this one's excluded. This one we're unsure about, so let's take a closer look at that perhaps. And again, the software that is available can help you kind of sort through that process.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to use software. You can use Excel, but the software, like some of these free tools are really neat in terms of like assigning papers to different reviewers and blinding decisions and things like that. It's just kind of like a workflow tool that can really help when you have a large number of articles to screen.
So from there, you transition from that fishmonger role, and you become what I call the shepherd, where you're carefully inspecting the sheep, you're applying that oil to keep the flies away, and you're really inspecting the articles that you have identified as keepers in that critical appraisal process. So you're looking, does it have a good, well-defined research question? Does it have a unbiased, reproducible method section? Have they clearly outlined, their demographics, their research method, is it reproducible? Can you take what they have said, the recipe that they've given, and conduct yours in the same way with maybe similar results? Are there study design flaws? Are there biases? And we can talk about some different biases if you'd like, according to research types and things of that nature, but you want to definitely be aware if there are biases within the studies. And of course, there are many tools for this as well.
Is the purpose of that step to further exclude things, or are you identifying issues that need to be taken into account in the synthesis?
It is one, but the careful inspection is to then have your final articles in which you're going to base your SRO.
So yeah, you do
So,
exclude
yes.
things if they don't.
You do. So then the critical appraisal skill program checklists are available. They have these checklists for every type of study that you might be considering. There's also the mixed methods appraisal tool that is available to help you do these critical appraisals of articles. I don't know if you're aware of any of these checklists or use them yourselves, but they're really, really quite great. And then you have your risk of bias tools, catalog of bias, quality assessment, risk of bias tool repository. And again, your librarian can help you kind of sort through these things and determine or help you identify biases within the articles itself as well.
And Traci, I think risk of bias is specific to healthcare, right? Am I correct in that?
I would say not necessarily, but primarily. Because I think others disciplines also can run into bias. Selection bias comes to mind, particularly and different things like that. So, and then of course you're going to look at your data extraction. Once you have that final list, you're going to we have a couple of tables that we have identified, but this is kind of what it looks like in an actual research study. This one was done identifying the optimal role of pharmacists in care transitions, the systematic review. And these are the articles that were the final cream of the crop. And, this is how they documented outcome, time, effect, and things like that. Kim, if you wanna. And then we'll pull up, do the other one first. So this is a Excel spreadsheet that you could possibly use to identify, according to what database you were in, the articles that you pulled from that database, and then from there, the data that you're extracting from each of those articles. So this is an example of kind of what that would look like. You do it according to, like I said, a database across the bottom. Date searched. If you updated your search, was it English only studies? Were there other limiters? What were the results that you found? And here, of course, you want to go into your categories of history.
What is the advantage of categorizing them by database?
For me personally, it's documenting methodically where you were, what you were doing, and where the actual article came from. Because a lot of times when you are searching multiple databases and you're dumping them all into, say, Zotero or Mendeley or one of those, it's deleting duplicates and you have no idea where it came from. And so for me, it's just another further step to allow you to know where it came from. Yeah, to map, exactly.
Yeah, and best practice is to report on it at the end in your flow chart. So that's why it's important to keep track.
Yeah, the Prisma flow chart also, you will add databases and then it funnels down into your final number. And so each database you document individually, like Kim says, I got 20 here, 40 here, 50 here. And then we weaseled it down or narrowed it down to this.
Thank you.
Kim, if you want to go to the next one. This one is much more, this is the wow. I'm just gonna say it, it kind of wowed me. But it really systematically brings you through the process. This was created by the two individuals that wrote one of the manuals on systematic reviews and assembling a systematic review. And so you can see it takes you through the tabs here, frame the question, document your criteria, find and analyze reviews, because part of the process, will be done by your librarian if you choose to put them on your team. And you will, you just document the whole process from beginning to end. So they're going to, of course, conduct your preliminary review along with you and identify, kind of estimate, okay, we're going to have to weed through 5,000 articles here based on just a couple of keywords that we put in. And you're kind of seeing what the scope is of what you will eventually be embarking on to know, number one, if you have the resources, but number two, if you have the time. So this is the cream de la cream of walking you through the process, and each page has a different purpose, and it's just really step by step and very methodical. So we can go back to another one. Which you admit. So from there, of course, you have your hopefully statistician. And they can help you through the SPSS software or Strata or something along those lines. As you conduct your synthesis. And determine what your review has uncovered and what impact it will have on things. And then from there, you will, of course, complete your Prisma checklist, update your reference managers. And we can look at and begin the process of the final write-up, identifying journal impact factor, journal impact and choosing the journals, identifying those predatory journals, perhaps that might want to steer clear of, and things of that nature through bells, and then through the JCR. So.
Okay, so, systematic reviews can be kind of health centered, right? But there are so many resources outside of the health sciences as well, so I just wanted to talk about a couple of those. The Campbell collaboration does review work in social sciences. So they do reviews in social intervention like education, crime and justice, social welfare, and international development. They have their own journal, the Campbell Systematic Reviews Journal. They have their own whole, manual on how, like, their methodology of conducting reviews, their own reporting standards. There's also the Collaboration for Environmental Evidence. So this is a community working towards a sustainable global environment and the conservation of biodiversity. So they promote and deliver evidence syntheses on issues of greatest concern in terms of environmental policy and practice. So they have their own manual on how to conduct reviews for them. They have their journal, the Environmental Evidence Journal, their own sort of checklist of what they want you to report on. I'll let you get a screenshot of that.
I have several friends who need this.
On their team.
Yeah, it's really neat. I kind of started looking into this because that's my background is environmental science, and it's really cool the work they're doing. Like, for example, there have been all these different studies about like where you should position roads to have the least like roadkill of wildlife, And so one big study they did was they pulled together all those studies, and then they had a statistician like put together all that data to come up with overall guidelines on where to situate roads and stuff. So it's really neat work that some of these organizations are doing, and there are others as well. There are organizations in education, and we can kind of help you find those.
The people I'm sending this to are actually looking at environmental stressors and health impacts.
Oh, perfect.
And the tensions, yes, there are clearly economic forces that would like us to believe that. That's good, brother.
Okay, so what are the benefits of working with the librarian on your project? Here are a few studies for you to consider.
This is the commercial.
Looking for work.
So one study found that librarian co-authored systematic reviews had a lower risk of bias compared to SRs where a librarian wasn't involved. Studies have also shown higher quality search strategies because, of course, that's kind of our area of expertise. And now we'll talk about our service. Sure.
So, in essence, Kim and I are spearheading a evidence synthesis service. I can actually say those. Don't say it 5 times fast, right? And we invite you really to come and talk to us about your projects. We have a research guide created to to kind of walk you through the process, and it talks too about all of the things that we're talking about in these workshops. But you'll find it under research guide. If you do a search in the search box, you can type in evidence synthesis. And right there. Or you can scroll down to the beats. But it talks about our mission, which is to advance evidence-based practice by providing search expertise, guidance, and support for conducting systematic reviews, similar review methodologies at FGCU for all disciplines. So we would like to partner with you in your research. I get really charged hearing you guys talk about what you want to do and how you want to do it. And I would love to be part of that team. We have links where you can get quickly to library resources or chat with us online. We have a meet the team. So if you just forget what Kim and I look like, it has our lovely pictures on it. And how you can email us or schedule an appointment with us as well. But it talks about the things that we've talked about here. What is it? Types of steps in the process. Again, those protocols and standards that we've addressed. And many more actually. Different databases, where to find great literature and white papers. The tools and software that we're going to talk about in the next workshop, but also down here, the consultation levels that I referenced before. We have the level 1 librarian as advisor, and these are the things that a librarian can do for you at that level 1 level. Level 2 as the facilitator. We'll scroll down a little bit, Tim. And these are the things that we would do at that level. And then level 3 is as a research partner and co-author. This is what we promised to do. And this is what you promised to do. When you come to this level 3, we have a MOA or MOU that we request that you contract with us with. And then from there, we will send you a really, really long question and answer, because we're going to have you specifically do things, and we're going to walk you through a project from start to finish. Please don't think that we're, gosh, I was going to say something that was terrible. I'm sorry. We are not here to have to do anything. We want your project to be completely successful. And Kim and I have done things and amped up our skills with different classes and things to ensure that we are knowledgeable in helping you do it. As FGCU seeks to ramp up its research and research presence, we wanted to be equipped to make sure that you as researchers were able to meet that goal and for your departments and things as well. So
Do those MOAs or MOUs kick in when we go to a level 3 collaboration?
yes,
So do they include the articulation of what constitutes co-authors? And I'm not asking as,
and
we-
that's what this does as well.
we teach that partly in our, you've been in scientific process and
right.
environmental research design. So it's really nice to be able to share that with our students about those decisions. You know, who and when do we have someone as a co-author?
Jim?
I'm concerned about be careful what you wish for, because you might get it. You might get it. And
Yes, for sure.
so I assume that there would be at some point some negotiation or agreement on the timeline when you're working with any particular group, so that we would know how to anticipate the when we could get this done.
Well, RSI, I will be honest with you, has had extensive conversations.
That's our department.
That's our department. about what we are able to handle. And, you know, if the possibility is that everybody loves us and just wants to partner with us. And so, we
Everybody
are,
does love you, by the way.
Yeah. Now, whether or not we partner with you, but we love you.
Sorry.
so with that in mind, you know, we are creating workflows and different things that will. And then we will then communicate back to you, okay, each of us has 10 on our plate, so this is the time frame you're looking. So we are definitely considering that and looking to see what we need to do.
And we have a request form.
Yes,
So if you're interested, you can submit a consultation request with this link right here. And this is just very brief. It tells us a little about your project. And it's basically so that we can set up an initial meeting with you to discuss.
and you'll give us some possible dates and times that will work best for
Yeah.
you, and we'll put that within our calendar as well. But, you know, one of the things that Kim and I particularly are committed to doing is if we need to jump off the committee, please, call us. You know, that kind of thing. You know, we're willing to be available to you as we can. Okay, so let me get through the rest of these slides. So with that, okay, we've done that part. Oh, join us for future workshops. You know, that's the commercial. We're gonna do tools and resources, and there are a lot of tools and resources that you may or may not be aware of. And so we are gonna have fun demonstrating those and walking through them. And then, of course, the gray literature and searching for gray literature, clinical trials and things like that. So here are our references, as any good librarian has wonderful references. And now we are ready to take the questions.
Could you back up one, Tracy? I just missed the time for the great literature. Thank you.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, hi, especially, I'm just wondering, perhaps this is part of the next round on the workshop. We've been trying systematic reviews, but we literally had to do them by ourselves. So that was a very tedious process. SciVal did offer some sort of assistance as a tool. But my question was, is SciVal not too exclusive where it doesn't consider the variety that's available and some of the gray literature that's out there?
That is so interesting. You know, I've heard of SciVal, but I wasn't aware that they were offering like SR services. So I'm assuming this would be for a fee.
No.
No?
If you are a subsidiary or if you sign up as an institution to Sevilla or the Web of Science, you could have access to as a librarian, I
Okay.
think you would have access to SciVal.
Okay, yeah, because we just got Scopus. So I'm not sure if we're getting like complimentary access to SciVal or how that works. I would have to check for sure.
But I know that it is connected with your personal accounts in NCB and CBI and things, and you can, you know, pull in those searches and different things. So
They do journal rankings, right?
Yeah, it's journal, yeah, it's any published material from an institution. Yeah, you could work by country or institution or subject matter. It's a variety.
And what exactly were they saying that they could do for you?
Well, it's a tool, and maybe that's why I was wondering whether that would be the next session. So this tool would allow us like almost condenses the Prisma workflow. Yeah,
Okay,
process.
okay.
And it does give you some output, like some analysis of your mind.
Interesting,
Yeah, so
okay.
you could present like maybe a word cloud or something like that with the major phrases.
so some digital or data visualization
Yeah.
type stuff. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll definitely include that in our goal workshop. But to be honest, I have not used that tool.
So now you have homework for your
I
next
know,
job.
right?
That was communication.
Always more homework to do. Yes, sir.
Graduate study, a graduate student research, since you're kind of aiming this at faculty and we're talking about experts, so how do you see that fitting in?
It depends on the response, honestly. I mean, if we get 50 faculty members needing, or wanting to collaborate with us, then they would take precedent over a grad student. But eventually, we're hopeful that we can include them in this as well, but.
Yeah, they wouldn't be, I'm not thinking by themselves, it would be on their
On the team.
Right.
Yeah.
working
In
under
collaboration,
a faculty committee.
I mean, I have worked with many of your grad students who's saying, I'm doing this for Professor so-and-so. And, you know, I have had consultations with them and different things like that, but. If a grad student came to me and said, I'm embarking on an SR, I'm like, oh, okay, who are you talking to? And how are we doing this?
Yeah, it wouldn't be by them, it wouldn't be by themselves, it would be very well regulated
So-
process in terms of.
Are you thinking of this as like creating chapter 1 literature review, or are you thinking that this could be a thesis or dissertation, this kind of a study?
Yeah, so we require somewhere in between, right?
Yeah.
We require our professional doctoral students need to do a research project that's somewhere in between a thesis and a dissertation. So it would be, they would have a faculty committee that would be working on their guidance and on their supervision of faculty, the faculty be involved, obviously.
And
So
my,
that's more, it's not like if one student is going like, well, I'm wanting to do this. And maybe more scoping reviews would be more appropriate rather than full SRs.
Be less of a systematic review.
Yeah,
and my experience with your students in particular is they come to me at the end.
yeah.
And, you know, I'm not a lot of help there. I'll just be honest, but at my previous institution, my experience with medical students and other types of students where they thought they were doing a systematic review, when in truth, they had 4 months in a semester and it was not a systematic review. So part of that was education, of course, and what constitutes one and what doesn't. But the other part is that, you know, you are doing your literature review, which is a small component of the greater system. So,
Yeah, these are actually projects that run 5 semesters, so once they and
yeah, so
they have to do-
longevity.
Yeah,
you
they
know,
have to do literature reviews for other type of classes, so that's probably where they come knocking on your door first, especially our first year. But then when it becomes a real, their actual
and they're bringing it all
project,
together.
it's actually a 5-course series, so it's not a 1 semester type of deal.
But-
I don't think we have ever done either scoping reviews or SRs, right, for student projects.
So is that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we'll have more conversation about that, but
For sure.
Yep.
Is there anything else that you can think of? Or, as you know, of course, you can always send your questions to us later if it triggers. And you think of something along the way. Again, if you would like to partner with us on a project, you can fill out that form and we'll have to consult with you. So,
Where will we be able to find this power?
I'm going to upload it to the cloud and then I'll send you the link after the
yes.
presentation.
And the video recording, if you wanna hear our lovely voices.
And the pages that you show that we could just find those off the library page with,
The guide?
let's see, I saw your picture, Tracy.
Yeah.
There's links to other things that I wanted to look at the MOUs to see if I could mine them for use in the class. Steal your good ideas.
Yes, that's all there.
It's on the library pages.
That's kind of what I was asking, if you were having some of these resources on your, the evidence synthesis service. page.
Yes, you will actually see on our research guide, Let's see, yeah. Let's see, types, I believe has the link to,
Evidence synthesis.
yeah, what
for this.
review is
that
type,
right?
right for you has that you just pointed to. Also has it, and it also has the, article. There, if you wanted to link directly to that article. as well. It has, if you click on protocols and standards, it has the Prisma, all the different Prisma protocols. How to register, different things like that, links. Of course, the databases and the white literature links. There's a specific, in that very literature. Yeah, this 4th International Conference on Gray Literature. There's a whole website, they talk to you about what is gray literature. Or finding things of that nature. So if you're interested in searching that further, but we'll be talking about that in the third.
Yeah,
Third workshop.
here's the nice easy link. It's just library.fgcu.edu/evidence synthesis service.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Yeah.
Or well, again, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I think this is the sign up stuff yet on the Lucas Center.
Not
Yeah.
yet, yeah, it'll be, in March.
Yeah.
The next one's in March, so.